So, let's see. I have your webcam, but now I'm moving your webcam around because I need to grab that question. All right. Now, I'm curious how something like Soul gets started in your games. I'm assuming she was a chain-packed warlock, and you just tweaked it so it was always the same unique familiar. Did Anna's player approach you with the idea of having a Phoenix as a familiar, and then the storyline grew from there? Basically, what does the process and the discussion look like during the character creation for something like that? That's a fantastic question. That's why we're using that as the question for the podcast today. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go get a Google document, and I'm going to copy and paste that question in there so that we could break it down. Because there's a lot of questions disguised as one question. Let's see. And we'll fit. I'll increase the font a little bit so we can see what we're doing. All right. GM advice question. All right, so let's get some context. What is Soul? So Soul is Anastasia's familiar in our Odyssey of the Dragon Lords game called Odyssey Prime in our Discord community. And basically, Red, Kobold Gaming, who was the player of Anastasia, was like, I want to make a siren. In that campaign setting, the sirens are harpies that are not evil. So they're like good harpies, essentially. They have a tragic backstory. They used to be angels. They get turned into like bird people by the gods. It's a whole thing, right? So what does that all like have to do with Anastasia and all that? So Anastasia's backstory is extremely dark. I'm not going to go into it too much because I don't want to spoil the campaign for people who haven't played it yet or want to watch it or whatever. But essentially, she wanted to be a warlock of the Phoenix patron. I think it was like a home, not a homebrew. It was a playtest material that never took off. Right? There was something like your patron was like a Phoenix, I think. And it was one of those, like, they used to do content back when they cared about the game. They used to do new content, like, as a playtest packet every, 2 months, every 3 months. And then sometimes it was good, and sometimes it was bad, and sometimes it was incredibly unbalanced. Sometimes they listened to feedback, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they just abandoned ideas. So I think that the Phoenix patron kind of got abandoned or whatever. But they wanted to do that patron. It was really cool. It was a warlock that focused a lot on like healing, and like resurrection and reincarnation and stuff like that. I think ultimately they went with Celestial Warlock and sort of were inspired by that playtest material that didn't get picked up. And then later on, I brought aspects of that playtest material in as like special abilities that she learned at higher levels. But she, that's right. So that at the beginning of the campaign, she wanted to do that, but she opted for Celestial instead. So she was like the healing thing. So her Celestial patron, she wanted it to be a Phoenix. And Phoenixes, right, they're a magic bird, and they get really big, and then they burn themselves out, and then they turn into an egg, and the egg hatches into a baby, and they start the whole thing over again, like cycle of life and death. So, a cool idea, based on her backstory, is she sort of kind of died before the campaign started. And then when she woke up from dying, or didn't die kind of thing, there was this baby Phoenix there. And so the baby Phoenix sort of had power that it couldn't access anymore because it was a baby. And so Anna's patron was the full-grown Phoenix that currently didn't exist, right? Because time is a pizza, right? So she went with Chain Warlock, I believe, and then that made the familiar kind of the centerpiece of the class. And so it was a cool idea that your patron is literally right here with you, but because it's a phoenix and it burned itself out shortly before you found it, and it's a baby, you got to take care of it. It's like Ash with his Charmander that's a little pussy, and like it gets beat up by its previous trainer, and it's dying in the rain. It's got a little leaf covering its little tail fire so it doesn't die, and then, you know, later on, it's the most badass Charizard in history, right? It's that same kind of it's the same kind of arc. It was a beautiful idea, very fun thing to do. So, yes, I tweaked it so it's the same familiar. Frequently, and I think this is I thought this was kind of the default. Maybe it's just because of how I grew up, but in the earlier editions of D&D, it was kind of always assumed that your familiar was always the same familiar. So as far as like tweaking it so it's always the same unique familiar, that never even occurred to me as a thing to do, because as far as I know, that's just how we always do it. If the familiar has a different form, it's still the same familiar, right? Because a familiar is an extension of the caster's spirit or soul or whatever that has been manifested into a little fleshy body. Even back in like 2nd edition, when the best you could hope for is like a toad or a tapeworm familiar to give you a +1 constitution bonus. Tapeworm was better because it was harder to kill since it was inside your intestines. It was like they were pretty useless back then, but like it was still considered to be that same spirit continuously like reappearing, and every time it dies you bring it back and that kind of thing. And that is wonderful in a game with less players, so small groups, definitely not the groups that I decided to run right now, but in a smaller group you could really lean into the familiar as sort of your secret DM NPC. Like if you need a DM NPC outlet, like sometimes that familiar can be great. And sometimes you can have like iconic familiars that are in your game's multiverse, right? Like everybody knows Mario and Luigi. I mean, everybody knows Mario and Luigi. That Mario is an imp and Luigi is a Quasit, and they have been in many of my campaigns. Both of them were in Curse of Strahd. I don't know.
Wait a second.
What?
So they were, because we saw them, but they weren't that. They were chefs.
Oh no. That was different. There was literally Mario and Luigi as imps and Quasits. Mario was actually in that house.
I mean, they both can be invisible, so I guess it makes sense.
And Luigi was in Castle Ravenloft. But Mario has been in Tides of Saltmarsh Moon, Tides of Saltmarsh Sun. He's been in Odyssey Prime. He's been in Curse of Strahd. So you can kind of make like, these iconic familiars that are living their own lives, and then they get summoned by casters, and that's kind of a way to do like a unique familiar sort of situation. Anyways, did Anna's player approach you with the idea of having a Phoenix as familiar, and the storyline grew from there? Absolutely correct. And then basically, what does the process and the discussion look like during character creation for something like this? Okay, so I have moved into, with my most recent games, the character questionnaire. You think we should throw up the character questionnaire on the screen?
Sure.
Okay, let me see. We can do the Skyhaven one, because I feel like nothing about Skyhaven can be spoilers, because it's a one of a kind. Alright, so Skyhaven questionnaire, character development questions. So I sent this to each of the players for Skyhaven, and they were required to fill this out before the game started. I don't know if you're going to put that level of care into your game, but lately, when I think about running a campaign, I think about it like this. I'm going to be doing this for at least a year, probably 2, God forbid 3, and I've screwed up real bad 4 years of my life, okay? So, like, if I'm going to be engaged in a project for that long, I might as well work harder to have a stronger start, right? A stronger start and a solid foundation. Rather than find out and dig for this information during the game, you can always just ask for it ahead of time. Do you know what I'm saying? And that kind of gets the players thinking about it too. Now, if you're running a real meat grinder type game, you probably don't need this to be as advanced or like, because if your intention, or I mean, you know, the theme of the game, or both, is to murder a lot of people, it's just a waste of time to have them come up with cool stuff and then for you to integrate that cool stuff. I've had entire arcs that I have homebrewed into a pre-written adventure that I had to throw in the trash because that character died. Or that player had to leave the game or something. And it was just like, well, what are we going to do with all this? So I wouldn't say that it's good for every game. But if you're running a normal game of Pathfinder or D&D where death is not really that common, and then once you get to like level 5, death is just an inconvenience, you could definitely get away with this sort of character questionnaire to kind of gather information about the character and then use that information to build up and then change the story and adjust the story accordingly. So in this instance, the campaign starts in the city. It's centered around protecting the city. Even though they're going to be traveling far afield, the city should always be close to their hearts, right? So it's sort of the anchor for the campaign. So the first question is, what part of the city do you call home? How has it shaped your values or skills? How old are you? Did you live through the violent teleportation of the city from Galarian to the plane of air? So in that first question, we're asking them to figure out, how old are you? How much history do you have with the city? What kind of stuff have you already lived through in your life? Are you a noble? Are you a commoner? Are you a homeless person? Are you an artisan? We're getting all that information right away. We're forcing them to think about their character as more than a rogue, as more than a sorcerer. They are a part of the city. What kind of part of that city? And there's no limits here. Somebody could have answered this and been like, I'm the princess, and I would have made it work. So let's see. Question number 2. Why? What's up?
Like, kind of continuing off of this like questionnaire thing too. In the beginning of Strength of Thousands, when you guys had the interview at the start, I think that was their attempt to, and it honestly, I'll let you know behind the scenes that, you know, those questions might come up at some point. The answers that you made. So again, in the case of that story, sometimes it's not necessarily backstory being part of the thing. It's about where the character wants to go and how to integrate that as well. Because in all those questions, it's all about like, okay, what do you want at the end of coming to this school, right? What do you want at the end of here? What are your goals? What are your things you want?
Yeah.
And so that gives the GM, and I guess in this case the school in game, an idea of like, okay, what can I seed into the future for this group? Absolutely.
So like I have that further down here. Where is it? Greatest fears, which well known. Oh yeah, here you go. Question 10. What reputation or impression does your character hope to build during this campaign? So basically, like, when all said and done, like, how does the world feel about your character, right? Like, are you a mysterious, like, vigilante hero? Are you a well-known folk hero? Are you a feared anti-hero? Does nobody even know who you are? Like what are you... asking them what they want the campaign world to think of them, what they want, you know, the people in the world to think when they think of their character, is such a big question compared to what do you want by level 20. Do you know what I'm saying? What do you want by level 20 is a mechanics question, right? Like, what do you want the world to know about you, or what do you want the world to think of you, is such a story question, right? So it is about kind of getting the players to think in that way, and then they give you their answers, and then now you have the real shit to go in and start, you know, crafting a story and building stuff. There are mechanical questions in here that I ask, but not a lot. They really are focusing on getting the players to think about how they are a part of the world, how they are engaged with the world, and then it's very easy then to take their answers and then modify it for for the game.
Yeah.
I think it's cool when adventures try to do this. I know that Odyssey of the Dragonlords has something called Epic Paths, which is one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen in a pre-written adventure, because basically they say, oh, these are the 6 or 7 like characters, right? These are the 6 or 7 characters that we wrote this adventure about. You need to basically trick your players into picking one of these epic paths, and then without them realizing it, they're gonna think that you wrote the adventure about them, but it's actually already been pre-written. Now, that does sound pretty good, right? It does sound pretty good, but it doesn't take it all the way. It takes it further than most adventures ever would, but it doesn't take it all the way. Because what if the player wants to be this epic path, but they're just not a good fit for it the way it's written? An example in Odyssey Prime was there was an epic path called the Dragon Slayer. And without telling you too much about the story, if you want to be a dragon lord, you probably don't want to be slaying all the dragons. So it doesn't really fit very well with the actual adventure, right? So that one we had to heavily modify, and I figured since I'm already modifying it, I'm going to go ahead and modify it in a way that makes my player Stone the most happy. And the 2 things that Stone loves the most in the whole world is Monster Hunter and blue magic from Final Fantasy. So we turned the Dragon Slayer into the Slayer, and it's not like the campaign had any shortage of mini bosses and side bosses to fight, and his whole thing was about tracking down and killing all these boss monsters in the world, absorbing their powers, and then being able to use their powers. He was so happy, right? He really, really liked it. So like it's very easy if you either know your players or kind of take the effort to get to know your players through something like this sort of survey. Another good thing that we do to learn about the characters and the players is the factspiration at the beginning of every session, right? That not only allows us to learn about the player, but it also allows us to continue to learn about the player characters, and it forces the players to continue to think about the player characters. Because here's the thing, you're going to have people that never answer a factspiration question, they never roll in, they never try to do it ever, right? So that's, I don't know, that's not cool with me, right? I think that I think that everybody should give it a shot once in a while, but I will tell you this, when they hear the question, they can't help but think about the answer.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So you might not think that you're making any progress there with some of your players, but every week they're going to hear that question, and even though they don't want to, they're going to start thinking about how their character would answer. And so that's going to continue to kind of make the character more than just a rogue or more than just a sorcerer, and kind of get them thinking about role-playing and being involved in the story. So, yeah. I think I could take one of these that was answered. It might give away some spoilers for the campaign though. But like, I guess here's an exercise. Dom, pretend you're making a character for Skyhaven.
Okay.
All right. So you're gonna go ahead and give me an answer on this one. Number 4. Do you have any notable allies, rivals, or family members in the city of Terranathus, or some who have left the city and never returned?
I mean, it's going to take a while for me to think about it. I have to, once I have my character. But yeah, I mean, I feel like if I want to, I definitely have somebody maybe,
just off the cuff, DM skills.
Considering I know this adventure's about sky pirates, I'm going to say somebody definitely left.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And I want to run into them during the game.
Okay, fair enough, right? Yeah. So of course your sister,
older brother or something like
your older brother who left the city to try and find their fortune is of course the masked antagonist that is causing so much trouble for the party for like an entire arc. only to be revealed at the end of the arc that that was that other character's brother who went missing so long ago. You know what I'm saying? And it can be a point like their throat got injured, so their voice is unrecognizable. You know, they wear a mask from the injuries that they sustained, blah, blah, blah. And then maybe they even have interactions where it's like, I know where your brother is, but, you know, like, I'm going to need you to do this for me. And then when they actually do the thing that anti-hero NPC wants them to do, then they kind of like pull off the mask and you see like the scarred face of their brother and everything like that. It's just that simple, guys. Like, you just ask them questions, and then you listen to the answers, and then you just let those become side quests and all that. Now, for Outlaws, I wanted to run it hella linear, but I still sent out a questionnaire for Outlaws, and the questionnaire asked them, like, tell me 5 people that you know in the city of Alkenstar. Could you imagine? You're signing up for a paid game, and Dish Ashhole's asking you to do creative writing assignment homework before the campaign even starts. He doesn't just want one person that you know in the city. He wants 5 people that you know in the city. And then what I did is I took all 25 of these suggested NPCs that the players made up, and any time I saw an overlap between one of their suggested characters and the adventure, I replaced the adventure character with the character they suggested. And bonus points, anytime 2 or more players had a character who was almost identical to somebody else's character, I messaged them and said, hey, these other 2 suggested a very similar NPC, so I'm going to mash all 3 of your guys together into this person, so you know this person in the same way that you know that suggested person. We're just going to swap the name out. So now, not only have I tied them to the adventure with their participation and interaction, I've also tied them to each other through their connected context. So these are all techniques that you can do to really kind of bring them in to the story. So now we do have a tab open here called Lost Minds of Fandelver.
We talked a lot about this when we were doing the engagement thing too.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
All right, Lost Minds.
So in Lost Minds, you might think that Odyssey of the Dragon Lords was like doing some groundbreaking work with its epic paths, right? But I'm here to tell you that that's not necessarily the case. Now, I don't know if the online version comes with the pre-constructed characters. That's what I'm.
Pre-made characters is right there.
Oh, where are they? Where are they?
Under the last thing under introduction.
Introduction, pre-made characters, fantastic. So these characters, I loved this box set so much, even though it was a bit of a meat grinder and kind of a mess. It was a beautiful mini sandbox adventure that definitely had the flavor of old school D&D, but was trying to sort of live and exist and survive in, the 5th age of magic. So basically, you've got these characters, and then they have these personal goals. Every single one of the pre-constructed characters for this box set has a personal goal that is something you can do in this sandbox. And I thought that was phenomenal. So like when I played this at a party, I had already run it, but when I played this at a party, I picked this lady right here. No, who did I pick? Yes, Human Fighter 2. So Human Fighter 2, it says, the ruins of Thunder Tree call to you. Your family and their friends once lived in prosperity there, and now they're reduced to menial labor. The ruins are haunted by ash zombies, and rumor has it a dragon has made its lair in the old tower, capital O, capital T. But those are problems a hero can solve. Slay the dragon or drive it off, and you'll prove to yourself and everyone else you're a real hero, destined for greatness. I got goosebumps for reading this. All right. So like I'm new to the hobby, and the DM hands me this piece of paper, right? And it tells me this is what it's all about, son. This is what it's all about. And I'm like, God damn, that is awesome. So what you could also do in your campaigns, right, is you could have a few of these written up, right? And then you could talk to your players, and if you got some players that are like, I don't really know, like, I don't know how I want to engage with it, you can whip these out on them and be like, well, I have a few hooks. Would you like one? Right? Rhyme of the Frost Maiden. Right?
Yeah,
yeah. So talk it out on that one. The secret.
Yeah. So the box that came with the adventure came with a bunch of secrets that they told you to hand out to, optionally you can hand it out to your players, and all the secrets, they weren't really like major things in the stories, but they were things that seeded a character and connected them to either another character, an NPC, or an event, or a side quest, or something like that. For example, Hellebore, she had one that tied her to an NPC. It was supposed to be a boss character that you guys would end up fighting, and I think it turned out really well. There was like a whole we ended up tying it into your backstory as well. Once we handed out the secrets, you being adopted and living in the with that with the tavern owner character you made up too.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I enjoyed them a lot. There was Red's character had a secret too that was very big, and it was also like kind of weird that when they had special abilities that no one understood about, but it had to do with their secret.
I love this. Littlest Yeti. If the party happens upon one or more Yetis in the course of adventure, the secret reveals stuff. You can also rule that Yeti tykes are friendly towards the character. So is this implying that you're a small hairless Yeti? Is that what's implying?
Or you were raised by Yetis.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Nice.
And you guys, I remember you guys.
We could have had a doppelganger in the party. Maybe we did, and we never found out.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I remember you. I think you had 2. We gave you 2 because you got Dritz fan and you're like,
fantastic. The harmless secret comes with no strings attached and is a nod to R.A. Salvatore's Dritz novels, which were among the first works to bring Icewind Dale. That was fantastic. I loved that. What I loved also, to get a little off topic, is when we were playing Baldur's Gate 3. And we went to the brothel, and we were hooking up with them drow hookers. And I was like, I need you to pretend to be Dritz Duerden. And then the dialogue option popped up, and it said, do you want me to pretend to be Dritz Duerden? And I was like, yes! Fantastic. Oh, man. It was good. It was really good. So this is like, in my mind, this is like the simplest implementation, right? Is like, coming up with some like, hey, these are some small hooks. The Lost Mine of Phandelver, those are some big hooks, right? They're basically saying,
they're like personal quests.
Personal quests, exactly.
Yeah.
So you can combine all of this together, right? And then have it all. Do you know what I'm saying? You could have it all. In the character questionnaire, after I ask these 10 poignant-ass questions, at the end, I have this section called Rumors. And it says, tell me 3 rumors about your character, 1 true, 1 false, and 1 a mystery. So the one that's a mystery means that the player doesn't actually know if it's true or not. So they can make up a rumor, but they have to sort of allow me to decide if that rumor is true or not. So it's a rumor about their character that the character doesn't know is true, and they don't know is true. It's just something that they've heard about themselves, but they don't actually know if it's true or not. So that's like another way to really get, involved in. I
gotta go back and look at what I put for Markel.
Yeah. And then it explains the true rumor. Players should confirm a true fact about the character that may influence early interactions. False. This falsehood can add intrigue to keep NPCs or PCs guessing. So maybe there's a false rumor that they were the queen's concubine, and it ends up being an inside joke for the entire 3.8-year-long campaign. That somebody stuck his fish stick in a certain oven. You know what I'm saying? It still came out frozen. Yeah. So like it's really neat. It's like a great way to sort of like add yet another layer of getting them involved in the adventure. One of my favorite things that happened in a recent game of the campaign Outlaws Sunset was there was a short adventure arc where they had to go undercover as caterers at a party. and they and they ran into one character's mom who worked for the catering company and one character's sister-in-law who worked for the catering company, and then they were also there with the character's like sort of one of the characters sort of kind of girlfriend from like before they became criminals or whatever, right? Yeah. And so like there was all these like really fun interactions that were happening that in the adventure they're like, yeah, there's caterers there. The end, right? There's like, obviously if there's a party, there's caterers there. There's an opportunity to take a throwaway thing, right? Like there's caterers at this party, and of course you know the caterers, right? Of course you got to know the caterers. Do the characters enter a deathmatch arena? Oof, that's rough, buddy. You got a 1v1 your long lost father. Like, you know, like these are your opportunities. You look for these opportunities to take the stuff that they gave you in this questionnaire and just slot it like right into the adventure. In the case of Anastasia and Soul, there were parts of the adventure that there were quite a few parts of the adventure that I was intent on rewriting because it was just poor. It was just weak. Yeah. And one of them involved a baddie who was like just kind of bad because the writers were like, he's a bad guy, I guess. And so I wanted to expand on this guy and figure out like he can't just be a bad guy, right? Like there's got to be some motivation here. There's got to be something going on. And so I said, you know, he is a bad guy. He's the one that killed Soul, right? Like he's the one that killed Soul and took Soul's divinity, right? And so now it's like not only is this sort of like, hey, I want to play a celestial warlock who's kind of still got a nod to the Phoenix warlock that got Phoenix sorcerer that got sort of like discontinued or whatever. I want to kind of have a mashup of that, and I want to have my familiar be my patron and show baby Phoenix, and as I get stronger, it gets stronger. So it's over. That's a great idea. That's really cool. And then now since your familiar is such a big part of your character, I felt like we needed to make the familiar have a backstory, and the familiar's backstory needed to be a part of the main story, right? Like any time that you can take a single thread and connect a side quest to the main story, a homebrew to the main story, anytime, even the smallest thread, to kind of keep the focus on the main story, even if they go off track, you kind of like bring it back around. Like there's nothing wrong with side quest adventures that don't mean anything, right? But it's so much better if you can find a way to make it serendipitously a part of the main adventure.
And you know what? You can also make that side quest be tied to a different side quest if you need to. Like it's great to have it tied to the main thing, but maybe your main story adventures, you're tied. You can't really sort of tie it there, but it doesn't stop you from tying it to a second side quest or somebody else's connection.
Perfect.
Maybe, like another piece.
The Kevin Bacon thing, right? Like how many degrees of separation from you and Kevin Bacon, essentially, right? Yeah. So like maybe the side quest, not everything that needs to relate. In Mythic Odyssey, you guys were investigating stuff, and then that investigation got well off track. And then it was still related to the main campaign adventure of crime and slavery and trying to abolish it and all that kind of stuff. But then it kind of got a little like muddied, right? With like undercover, like pseudo undercover cop sting operation, going for a boat ride, being thrown overboard, wrapped in chains, dying, like all that kind of stuff. But like it might have seemed like none of that mattered, but the guy that got thrown into the ocean was also hated by the god of the ocean, right? And so then there was this opportunity for the god of the ocean's minions to kind of converge on that location and sort of like claim that prize for their god. So there's always these opportunities to sort of like bring the theme of the campaign into focus, regardless of what you get up to, what side quests you get up to. Yeah. But I would say it's not an easy thing to do. I don't want to talk about this and say like it's so easy. It's just something for me that I've been doing for like 30 years, and it's just something that the more you do it, like the easier it will get, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say that with Rhyme the Frostbane, because of those secrets, helped me get the feel of it. And with Strength of Thousands, I have stuff based off of what the players have told me, but I feel like it's gonna be, this is the first time doing it without the help of the adventure. So I'm looking forward to see how it turns out.
Nice.
But yeah, it definitely is not like, look, I know, especially on Odyssey of Dracula is your name, read the whole book. It's helpful to do something like this. It is helpful to know the adventure, all the major beats of the adventure, and then some of the side beats too, just so you can know where to drop stuff in and where to cut and paste, and insert where you need to insert.
If you know the adventure well, when you're reading the answers to these questions, to the questionnaire, or when you're just talking to your player before the game starts, or when you're listening to a Factspiration, you're gonna have these aha moments where you're like, I know exactly what to do with that. I know exactly where to put that. I know exactly which NPC to replace with this other NPC now. And if you haven't read ahead, if you're one of those DMs that's like, oh, I got a game tonight and I haven't even read this part of the adventure yet, like, you're gonna have a hard time doing this, right? Yeah, because the world is essentially to you a very limited scope, and so how do you find a way to insert new content or replace content when you aren't even aware of all the content? Yeah, so that would definitely contribute to making this much harder task. I mean, I think that kind of covers it, honestly. I think that covers it.
Trying to think if there's anything else.
Well, there's the controversial aspect of it we could talk about, the AI aspect. If you are new to this and you are struggling, you could always ask for some assistance. So what you would do is you'd say, hey, I'm running this adventure, and trust me, if it's a published adventure, the AI already knows about it, because someone out there has fed the illegally fed the adventure into the GPT or into the the AI and said, like, this is the adventure I'm running. It's like, so for like example, Curse of Strahd, you could just go to the thing and say, hey, I'm running Curse of Strahd for my 5th edition D&D group, and I want to incorporate the character stories into the adventure. These are the 3 players I have, and here are some answers to the questions I asked them. Can you suggest some ways to insert them into the adventure? And some of them are going to be great, some of them are going to be a little hit and miss. But overall, it's gonna help you see, right, like how it's done. We could do it right now, actually. If let's see, I got a GPT right here. So we'll say use voice mode. How lazy am I? I'm pretty lazy. All right. Let's see. Forever. Go.
Hi there. What's on your mind?
I am going to be running a 5th edition D&D campaign called The Curse of Strahd, a popular gothic horror adventure, and I am hoping to find ways to better incorporate my player characters' backstories into the existing adventure. I'm going to tell you about each of the 3 characters, and when I'm done, I would like you to make some suggestions about how we could better incorporate them into the adventure, or how we could replace some of the existing content with content tailored to my player characters' backstories. Does that sound good?
That sounds great. I'd love to help weave your players' backstories into the adventure.
Sounds good to me.
Go ahead and tell me about the characters.
Okay, the first character is named Dom Odyssey, and he is a human man from Florida on the planet Earth in the year 2025 who has been magically isekai'd into Barovia. He is afraid of everything, especially commitment. But the one thing he wants to do before he dies is find true love and own his own house. The second character is named Red Kobold Gaming, and they're an incredible artist. They're a kobold from the world of Eberron, and they love artifice, and their goal is to someday create robotic life that has its own soul. The last character is named CRASHDOM, and they're a degenerate goblin from the world of Galarian that has somehow been transported from the Pathfinder setting into the Dungeons & Dragons setting. Their goal is to cause as much mischief and chaos as possible, and also to take over as Lord and Ruler of Barovia.
These characters have unique and engaging backgrounds. Here are some ideas to tie them into the campaign. 1. Dom Odyssey. His fear of commitment and quest for true love can be tied to the themes of longing and entrapment in Barovia. Perhaps he encounters NPCs like Irina or Esmeralda, whose stories reflect aspects of his own journey. A subplot could involve Dom trying to break a curse related to love, linking to his goal of finding true love. Owning a home could be connected to securing a safe place in Barovia, like renovating an abandoned house as a haven from the dangers of the land. 2. Red Kobold Gaming. As a kobold artificer, Red Kobold could discover ancient magical machinery in Barovia, or interact with constructs, such as the Abbot's creations. Their goal of creating life with a soul could lead to interesting interactions with the Abbot or the golems in Castle Ravenloft. This could also tie into a subplot where they attempt to fix or improve the constructs, learning more about Barovia's lore in the process.
Sorry, the robot's talking to stream. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'll send you the message in a sec.
Okay, hold on. Let me.
All right, here. I'll read the last one.
No, I'm turning the stream on. Yeah.
Oh no! I broke her. Oh no! I stopped her when she wasn't done yet. Oh, how terrible. Okay, so we'll say, those are great. Can you propose something for CRASHDOM? Add Jeff the Shark to the party? I will do it. Hold on. Certainly, here's how CRASHDOM's chaotic ambitions could fit seamlessly into the Curse of Strahd. The Mischievous Usurper, the Goblin Prophecy, the Mischief and the Vistani, the Dark Gift of Chaos, Rivalry with Strahd, Barovian Anarchy. So other stuff for you, Dom, it said that you might fall in love with Esmeralda or Irina.
Wow. Yeah. I just read it. Yeah.
So yeah, we could. Okay, so we'll say there is one more character I forgot. His name is Jeff, the Land Shark, and he is a land shark from a comic book universe. His goal is to eat some of the toughest monsters in Barovia. How can we fit him in? What I hate is that it's updating its memory with this information. So now when I'm actually talking to it about Curse of Strahd, it's gonna be like, this would be a great time for Jeff to come in. It's like,
boy.
So Jeff's monster menu. Barovia offers plenty of tough creatures that can serve as Jeff's culinary targets. Werewolves, Strahd's Nightmare. Strahd's Nightmare, not Persepolis. Oh my goodness. Baba Izaga's hut? Excuse me?
I mean,
that's a big chicken
perfect.
legs. That's some big chicken legs right there.
Hey, yep.
Izek Strasny. Oh my god. The Abbot's Flesh Golem. Calm down. Alright, Strahd would likely find Jeff both amusing and infuriating. Imagine Strahd tolerating Jeff's antics for a while, only to lose patience when Jeff sets his sights on something like the Brides or Castle Ravenloft's guards. Land Shark.
I want to see this. I want to see this party now.
Oh my god, this is amazing. No, these aren't Curse of Strahd spoilers. This is just an example of like things that could happen. Trust me, Jeff the Land Shark is not in Curse of Strahd
yet.
To give Jeff an active role in the story, the Monster Buffet, NPCs offer bounties. Here we go. NPCs offer bounties or guidance to particularly monstrous foes, hoping Jeff will take care of them. A stomach for magic. Jeff discovers he can gain temporary magical abilities by eating enhanced enchanted creatures, leading to absurd experiments. What happens if I devour a will-o-wisp? Do I glow in the dark? See, that's a cool suggestion. That's like the Slayer thing I mentioned earlier, where I knew the player really liked Monster Hunter and he really liked the Blue Mage class from Final Fantasy XIV. So it was like, yeah, when you kill a monster, you get some of its abilities. So like,
if you eat him,
yeah, Jeff the Land Shark, he wants to eat things. You could reward him for doing the things that he says he wants to do by letting him gain monster powers. Maybe not forever, maybe just for a little while after he eats some monsters. It's really cool. All right. What are some prime real estate targets for Dom Odyssey? All right, good luck. Let me know when we're starting this campaign. All right, so look, it says, hey, here are some houses that Dom Odyssey might want to come into. The old Bone Grinder. Well,
oh no.
Normally it gets burned. Something in the village of Barovia, perhaps. The entire castle of Argynvoss. The Wizards of Wine Winery. Well, I mean, a family lives there, but I guess if they get murdered, I don't know. Maybe you could build a house on their property. You know what I'm saying? Like when they say, "What can we do to reward you?" You could be like, "Actually, that shed over there has got a nice, strong foundation. I think I'm ready to fulfill my millennial dreams." But it won't have any legs because Jeff's going to eat the legs off the hut. Yeah. Themes to explore. Dom's fear of commitment can shine through in how he interacts with the properties. He might hesitate at every decision, procrastinate on the repairs, grow into someone who sees the value of investing in something and someone meaningful. See, this is what I'm talking about. You just go in. You don't go in there thinking that it's going to solve all your problems. But you
go in there for ideas.
Yeah, if you don't have anyone else to bounce your ideas off of, like Dom and I have each other, we have people on the server, we have a channel for homebrew on the Discord, we have a channel for GMs to just shoot the shit. We got channels for like different campaigns to talk spoilers. So we have that. There's also Discord communities for all these different things, and you could go into them and say, hey, you guys have all run this a million times. You hang out on this Discord server because you sort of define yourself by this the fact that you've run this campaign so many times. Oh, where can I put Jeff the Land Shark into Curse of Strahd? And I guarantee you, people are going to have answers. People are going to have suggestions. So yeah, like you have a lot out there in the world, in the internet, that you could hit up for ideas, for sounding boards, right? You kind of put out there what you're after, and you listen to what comes back. You don't have to do any of it, but you listen to the ideas that come back, and maybe that'll give you new ideas that you could take further. So we might say, what happens if Dom wants to live in Baba's hut, but Jeff wants to eat it? And Red Kobold wants to turn it into a suit of mech armor. Ooh, I don't think she's gonna have an answer for this one. Let's see. She will. She always does. In this kind of chaotic party dynamic, how dare you? Dom Odyssey, Jeff the Land Shark, and Red Kobold Gaming all have conflicting desires for Baba Lyzaga's creeping hut. It could lead to some incredibly entertaining roleplay and a memorable subplot. Here's how it might play out. So, I'm not gonna lie. Curse of Strahd is a rough campaign to run. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of different factions. There's a lot of people vying for power. I have a ChatGPT that I will talk to about the campaign, and I will say, hey, what do you think Strahd would do based on what's happening right now? And then I'll tell her what's happening right now, and then she'll be like, God damn. God damn. And the thing is like, it's such a cool thing, right? Because she might make some suggestions, and I'll be like, I don't think my Strahd would do that, right? And then you can always just say, yeah, the way I'm running Strahd, I don't think he would do that. He's more of a this and that, and he's into these things, and he acts like this more often. And it's just like, ooh, okay, we'll take it what I know about the classic traditional Strahd and the Strahd that you described. Maybe they would do this, or maybe they would try that. Like, it could be a great way to sort of talk yourself out of a corner, and it could be a great way to find avenues of, insertion for your players' backstories and your players' subquests and interests and stuff that you might not have thought about before. Because Magic Computer Brain, right, has access to the entire adventure, right? And it can search the entire internet. The 10,000 posts about Curse of Strahd on Reddit, it could just go read them and come back and be like, yeah, maybe like this. It is a huge time saver, and it can be, especially if you're new to the idea of integrating the player backstories, integrating the player questionnaires into the game. It could be a great way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it can work. It can work with a homebrew also. What I did to teach it about Skyhaven is I exported my GM notes, and I as a PDF. I exported my player's guide as a PDF, and I went and I said, hey, this is the campaign I'm running. Read these 2 PDFs. It read the 2 PDFs, and it, of course, it like blew smoke up my ass. And was like, "You're a genius. This is the best campaign that's ever been written. You're so cool." And I was like, "Yeah, girl, I know. Keep it coming. Keep it coming." But then I said, "All right, well, now that you know about the world, here are my player questionnaires. What do you think some cool ways to do it are?" Now, I didn't have to do that. I was reading through the questionnaires. I got excited. I was like, oh, yeah, we're going to put this here. We're going to put this there. But what I do ask it sometimes, because I have over 200 pages of notes about this campaign, and I don't remember my own notes, right? Because I have a really bad memory. So I might go in and say, hey, who's in charge of the Aether Blades? And then it'll say, oh, this person's in charge of the Aether Blades. And I'm like, ah, that's right. Okay, how do you think that person would react to this adventuring party when they first meet? And it'll say, oh, well, based on the fact that so-and-so is related to so-and-so, and this person is a former criminal, and they say, oh, yeah, so they're probably not going to like the party very much, right? Or they might say, they might not like the party, but they're willing to trust and listen to them because this connection to this connection to this connection. Things that, like, me working a full-time job, raising a family, running 3 different campaigns, well, 5 right now, like... how am I going to keep all that straight in my head? So it is a very useful way to sort of like continue to manage that integration of your players into the campaign. Exactly. It's like having an assistant. It's like literally what it was actually made for. Not to steal the artist's jobs, but to actually help you do your job better. Yeah. So I just kind of wanted to end on that slightly controversial. I know people feel different ways about AI, but in this instance, I do feel like if you are new to this and you do need some help sort of coming up with like hooks, coming up with ways to integrate those players better into your game, this is definitely a good avenue to approach, especially if you're crunched for time and you can't just go onto Discord and chat with people and all that. That to me is probably the best way to do it. Join a Discord related to the, based on the campaign that you're running. There's one for every campaign, trust me. And you can go in there and say, hey, what's going on with this campaign? Yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that. What are some things that I need to watch out for? What are the pitfalls? And you can also say, hey, my players want to have their stuff integrated more. Have you had success doing that? What are some things that you do? People love to talk about their D&D campaigns. They love to talk about their D&D campaigns. So, so there's a human organic option. There's a digital option. You can do it yourself. Pull yourself up by your creative writing bootstraps. But it all, as always, comes down to communication. You can't do anything for your players if you haven't talked to your players.
That's true.
Yeah, don't write your player characters' backstories for them.
Without input from them.
Yeah, unless they opt in. I've only ever had one player who was Lift from Skull and Shackles that just said, "Fuck me up, fam." Like, for his backstory, he said, I've got amnesia. I don't know anything about my backstory. I want to find out during the game. It was a great experience. It was a lot of fun. So, like, but I would not have done that to somebody if I didn't know their backstory.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're good. I think that answered the question really well. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow is the final game of Outlaws High Noon. Sunday could be the final game of Curse of Strahd Daybreak. I kind of hope it is, because if it's not, next Sunday will be the final game of Curse of Strahd Daybreak and the first game of Kingmaker. And that's going to be a real stressful Sunday. That's going to be a real rough time. Like a real rough time. Followed by the first session of Stolen Fate. So it will be a real rough time. But I don't think it'll be the last session of Curse of Strahd Daybreak on Sunday, but it would be nice. Maybe I'll just hand wave it. Maybe the bad guys will just drop their weapons and be like, we're tired of fighting. Got Kingmaker started. It's fine. You win. It's fine. It's over. We'll see. Any other announcements?
No, nothing. Other than, the games that are coming up, Strength of Thousands, Carrying Crown, and I think that's really it. And then, Skyhaven again. So.
All right. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, we'll leave everybody to their Friday. Hope everybody has a great time. If you want a community where you can talk about D&D, Pathfinder, TTRPGs, play Marvel Rivals with people, find people to play Baldur's Gate 3 playthroughs with, just generally a really cool community, you could hit us up on Discord. The link is somewhere on this Twitch page. If you're on YouTube, you have some investigating to do, I guess. But yeah, or I guess you could take a shortcut and go to Patreon. Anyways, hope everybody has a good weekend. Dom, great to hang out. Good discussion.
Yep.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Yep.